Cowardice asks, the question, is it safe? Expediency asks, the question, is it politic? Vanity asks, the question, is it popular? But conscience asks, the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but he must do it because conscience tells him it is right.
Every time our country stands in the path of danger, an instinct seems to summon her finest first, those who truly understand her. When freedom shivers in the cold shadow of true peril, it's always the patriots who first hear the call. When loss of liberty is looming, as it is now, the siren sounds first in the hearts of freedom's vanguard.
Fighting for humanity and against globalism, one mind at a time. It's the Freedom Link with Joe Joseph.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's Saturday night, and I don't know about you, but I'm not feeling all right. Why? Well, there's a whole heap of crap, trouble going on, and I thought maybe we would assemble the team of extraordinary gentlemen to discuss this. So we now have a quorum here with Popeye and Scotty. By the way, I not trying to be all. I don't want to use I don't want to be one of them there conspiracy theorists, if you will, but they got that notice to that notice to flyers out there that go out in their airplanes and they go over our airspace and they say, now this is a place you don't want to go. Well, Montana once again seems to be front and center, and now they're after 3 of these mysterious targets were taken down, right? Now there's a suspected 4th or some other reason why there's a bulletin out there. Stay away from this airspace, Montana.
And this is just breaking, right? This
Tis
is
breaking. Tis breaking at this time. Yes, very much so. Now, I have to say that it's probably one of the most chaotic times I've seen in quite some time, barring 9/11. 9/11 was kind of weird, when living through that. But this time here, this is crazy. And let me say why. Because the week started with the Russians finding out through Seymour Hersh that we blew up the pipeline. Yeah, okay. Like they didn't know that. But I guess having it put out there like that, if that happened to us, we would be probably very upset and or retaliate in some way, shape, or form. I don't know why or how anybody could expect that shouldn't expect that the Russians do something like that. And let me say this, historically speaking, the Russians don't give up. As you look and you take this from a cultural geopolitical aspect, Russia does not give up. They have never once, as far as I can tell, surrendered. They fought basically until they couldn't fight anymore, until things started to break down. But they fought and fought and fought till the end. And anybody that thinks that this Ukraine thing is going to go over quickly, you got another thing coming. Either that or it's going to escalate. But who knows? A lot of that stuff, too. I don't know. Popeye, what do you think? I say that it's more of that out of chaos order stuff. But things are getting a little bit dicey with the added Chinese balloonery And then you got the Russians and and then all the excess deaths. We got to talk about that tonight too. So we got a whole heap of stuff going on. Yeah, if you haven't heard about it, people are dropping dead all over the place. I'm sure you've all noticed, but I'm going to just throw it out there.
They are.
People are dying in
I wonder what could be causing that.
Oh, I'll tell you what's causing that.
Global warming?
Yeah, it's global warming. That's right.
I heard global warming. I've seen articles that said global warming is causing like a rise in heart attacks. I actually saw an article that said a rise in activity.
I'm so glad you said that. Because somebody, I'll tell you what. Now, I wish that more people had the cojones to actually do things about how they feel, right? They act out, kind of like activism, right? Okay, check this out. Climate change activists go rogue, releasing mini volcanoes to cool the atmosphere. Now, never mind chemtrails. Never mind the NASA Global Dimming Program. Never mind all that, right? That stuff's government funded. That's like Black Ops, Evergreen Air, all that stuff from a decade and a half ago. All that aside, guess what? People are going rogue now. And now, it says a Mexican-based startup will launch sulfur particles into the stratosphere in a rogue move to create a mini volcano effect. It says could help cool the planet. So if that's the case, then maybe our excess death problem would be solved, Popeye, because maybe we need chemtrails to survive. And maybe they just, due to budget cuts or maybe the war or whatever, they can't spray like they used to. So these good citizens of the earth are doing their due diligence and their duty to ensure that we survive. So they're going to spray for them, right? This is great. This is good. Isn't it?
The government admitted, I did a show about this, right? In fact, my last show right before I had surgery, and I had the T1000 treatment done to my neck. The last show I did was titled "The Government Admits Geoengineering is Real," because they came out right around the end of the year, right around the end of 2022. They quietly came out and admitted that geoengineering is a real thing and that they are actually doing it, and that they're doing it because they have to. They're actually remember we talked like 10 years ago. We talked about global dimming and how part of the idea of them spraying aerosols into the sky was to block sunlight from getting to the Earth's surface. And people were like, "You're all crazy." And it was one of the things
and
Michael
then the South
Murphy
Koreans
talked
came
about
out with Snowpiercer.
Yes,
remember that?
One of the
and
things
it was like
Michael Murphy talked about in what in the world are they spraying and why in the world are they spraying?
Yeah.
And people thought he was crazy. People thought he was absolutely out of his mind when he made those two documentaries.
They're contrails.
And yet it's amazing because when remember back like 10 years ago, you would talk about quote unquote chemtrails. You were crazy, conspiracy, kooky nutbag. Yet now the federal government is openly admitting that they are doing exactly what we said they were doing 10 years ago. They are, they actually used that. They didn't say they didn't use any type of cover up wording. They said they were using atmospheric injection of aerosols. What do you think that means?
And it's bad too. You remember all the work that Griff did with chemtrails, and then we had a lot of people tested this stuff and found a lot of crazy things like blood, dried blood was being sprayed. There was lithium. There was
I think they were testing all sorts of stuff back in the day.
I think so too. Yeah.
I think they were just running all sorts of experiments. I mean, for people to say, "Oh, well, they weren't doing that." Dude, they have sprayed with all the the classified documents that have finally come out and been released over the years, because the reason why they released them is the people that were involved are all dead now, so they can't go after them. But look at all the pathogens and stuff that they've sprayed into like the subway systems and cities and stuff to quote unquote test things, or things that they've sprayed on people, or the radioactive substances that they mixed in food.
The Igo complex. Oh man, in St. Louis. Yeah, it was bad stuff, man. Forced sterilization.
They sprayed people with radioactive compounds, and it was horrible.
It's awful.
You know, and
it's awful. So okay, but there's got to be a good reason for it, right? Because it's for science, and in pursuit of science, that's how we got the wonderful cures for COVID-19 that graced us during this pandemic. And
the science PM.
It was the science, right? Because that's it. The science is the authority. Trust the science. Well, I am. And Dr. John Campbell, right? Here's Dr. John Campbell. If you haven't seen Dr. John Campbell, he was on with Russell Brand today or yesterday. I don't know. It was his last video he posted over on YouTube. But if you don't know who Dr. John Campbell is, check it out. Now, he is over in the UK, and he has put a particular focus on excess deaths. And I want to bring this up. This is the chart right here as the excess deaths so far. And I don't know his time span. Typically, he does it like a year. So let's just, and a matter of fact, I'm going to go here. Let's see what this says. I'm going to go here as he see what it is. Excess mortality P-score baseline. So this is where he's pulling his data. Is University of Oxford. So here you go. So you can add up and get any of these countries here. So when he does this, and if you notice, January, so you can take the time span and you can mess with it to see where it is. And this is the United States. So we can just take this. Let's do United States. We'll go. So December 11th, 2022. This is excess mortality. And if you take a look, it kind of goes in waves. Typically what you'll see with these, if you look at it, it corresponds to the winter. The winter, you end up having more excess deaths, oftentimes just from the increase in sickness because, you're not getting as much sun, all that kind of stuff. What? Check this out. So here is a list of the excess death percentages. And you take a look at countries like Germany, who had mandatory vaccinations. The Netherlands, I think they did 37%, 43% excess deaths in Germany. England, 20%. Denmark, 30%. I think we're 12%. What's the common denominator? Well, that's what he's trying to find out. And it's telling a story. And that story, unfortunately, goes to mRNA vaccines. It just does. First of all, let me say this. To call them that would be unscientific. Because by definition, it was gene therapy. It had nothing to do with using dead cells. These made you a spike protein factory, is what it did. And then by doing that, you kick up your immune system in theory. But the side effects are pretty terrible. And as a result, you're seeing a lot of excess deaths, more so than you normally would. Now, that may not normally be a problem historically. However, fellas, we have a problem. And that problem is everybody in the first world is not reproducing. So you have excess deaths. You have aging populations, and you're not replacing those aging populations with another generation. In countries like China, Russia, Germany, Europe, hell, the whole continent of Europe for the most part, You're seeing Japan, a huge crisis going on. Within the next decade, they're not going to be able to sustain their economies. So something's got to give. Now, this is an interesting thing, fellas, because you could see China, who was the cutting edge, the beta test, if you will, of using AI to manage society, right? Which is kind of Orwellian slant Huxley-ish, if you will, right? Kind of following that pattern. What if they start going down the route of just manufacturing babies? I mean, do we have the technology to do it?
Well, I mean,
Because
and we know,
clone, can't we? Right?
we know that at least on the surface, China does not adhere to the same ethical standards that we do. Of course, I'm sure we're doing a lot of the same stuff behind the scenes, obviously, but China kind of openly does a lot of this experimentation and real,
Oh, yeah.
kind of shady sort of medical research and things of that nature. So, they would probably be completely fine with going that route if that's what it took, and so. Yeah, I definitely think that is something that's on the table.
Well, so when people think about the conflicts and the struggles that are going on right now in the world, you cannot take it at face value because it is not what it appears to be. And we have evidence of that all over the world. And then you have historical context too to put it in to kind of understand what's going on. So here's kind of the way I see it. It's been known for quite some time that the whole goal of this thing is to bring about a one world order. And all it takes is the right set of circumstances to bring it about. And they're really trying to get that. But at the same time, they're trying to also get to it within their America 2050 framework, Codex Alimentarius, all of those documents and frameworks that the UN kind of put together and all these think tanks put together to do that. It's been really, really a slow but methodical process that's starting to bear out. It started a long time ago with Planned Parenthood, the one-child policy in China. All of the first world started going towards that, collapse the birth rate. Doesn't take long to make it a big deal where you're going to have mass depopulation just by doing that, right? Then you have the dropping sperm counts all over the place. The more RF you have in your society, the more of that electromagnetic interference, smart meters, things like that, you're gonna have, it's gonna have an effect on your physiology. It can't not. It's radiation, and it's cumulative. So when it was just FM AM radio, hey, no problem. But you start taking and basically bathing us in radiation, well, it's going to have an effect. It's going to have an effect.
And not just that, but 10 years ago, well, let's say just 10 years ago, when we were reporting on all of this crazy stuff and people weren't listening back then, the birth rate versus death rate was already a problem. We were already behind.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
and
big
in the
time.
past
The
10
only thing
years,
keeping us going, Popeye, is immigration at this point.
Well, right, but in the past 10 years, what's really, it's gotten even worse because they've convinced the youth to not get married, not have children. They've infected the youth with the idea that, and I'm not saying that, there are some people where they, I'm not saying you should go out and marry and reproduce immediately at 17 or 18 years old. If you want to have a career, advance, you should be stable financially and stuff before you have children and all that. So, I fully agree. But the idea of even having children or having a cohesive family is so
Mm.
like distant. I saw a video clip earlier today where this young Asian man, I don't know the guy's name. He's, I would say, probably in his mid to late 20s. So
Right.
the age of my daughters. And he was in this room with a bunch of other people that were around his age, and they were all different races. And he was talking about how his young generation, it's not a racist white principle to want to have a nuclear family where
No.
and go out and work for a living and like be married and not have children out of wedlock. Like that's not a racist white
No.
ideology.
Dude,
And
look at we
and
are
the idea
tribal
that
before,
is
dude.
insane. And you should have seen the look on the faces of everybody else in the room other than this Asian guy who was saying this. He was
Right.
making sense. The look on everybody else's faces was you would have thought he was like espousing the most racist ideology and racist thoughts you've ever heard. And yet he was not. He was just saying like, yeah, like it's not racist to go out and like want to have a family and like go to college and build a career. That's
Yeah.
all he
As
literally
no.
said. And these people, they literally were melting down
Like
in the
they feel
room with him.
entitled. Like somehow they're entitled to it all.
So
Yeah.
they've convinced the younger generations. They've brainwashed them, like Charlotte Iserby warned about for years,
Yep.
and
Yep.
others. They they literally have brainwashed them so that there's this huge swath of this younger generation now that does not want to have kids. So you don't even have to kill that section of the populace
No, they're
off,
just gonna die off.
right? They're
Yeah.
not going to reproduce. So
Right. You're
you've
done.
totally convinced them to not have kids. Then there's that's not, I'm not including the ones that you've convinced aren't boys. Boys aren't boys, girls aren't girls.
Oh
They're
yeah, you throw that muck
they're
into it.
ducks, or they're a cat, or you're a furry, or you're a whatever. I mean, it's there. All of that is that's not coincidence. That's all being done on purpose. And then on top of that, then you have the died suddenly. You have the whole Rona. You have the whole jibby jab. We couldn't talk about it for 3 years. Suddenly now we're allowed to talk about it. I remember 3 years ago being on live streams with you guys, coming back on air
Code
with you
said
guys
this,
the
code
end of
that. Yeah.
2019 on Kev's show with you,
Yeah.
and being like, yo, do you guys see people dropping in China?
Dropping,
What's
yeah.
going on over there? There's
Right.
something weird going on. I don't know what's going on. All I know is get your stuff together and make sure you have everything handled, because it doesn't matter whether it's real or fake. I know how the government's going to react to it. And
Right,
people were
right.
like, you're all conspiracy theorists. You're just trying to fearmonger and scare everybody. And then
Yet again.
poof,
Yet again.
the
See,
hammer
that's the
dropped.
problem. Over time, you get to see things kind of come about. And it even, remember 2016, I did that, the documentary Obsolete with Aaron and Mel. And I haven't seen it in a long time. So I clicked on it the other day, and because I couldn't even remember half the crap that was in it. And oh man, dude, it was just like, wow, it's going faster than we ever thought we could have imagined it going. And it's bad. So, but then you have to wonder, like, why is this happening? And it's all part of a plan. It's all being orchestrated. But pivotal to that is the chaos. You have to have chaos in the world, because if you do, you can control the masses a lot easier. They've learned this for a long time, which is why you always have this varying degree of intensity going on. It's always one step onto the breach, dear friends. You know, it's
Ordo ab chaos, Joe.
but
Yeah,
it's always
and
like that,
Order out
and
of
they get it.
chaos.
They get it, right?
and
So,
I mean, fear is the mind killer. If you're able to project fear onto the masses, they're very easily controlled, because when people are scared, they will do whatever they feel is necessary to keep them safe. And the amount of fear that was pumped out over these last couple of years, during the pandemic and all of that, it was at astronomical levels. I don't think I've ever seen a fear campaign of that magnitude, since 9/11, really. I mean, I think it was even worse than 9/11, right? Because
they're ratcheting it up right now because now it's the World War III rhetoric, and it's really going hot and heavy. As a matter of fact, they're all saying, "Oh, the Russians won't think twice to push the button."
Well, but they're going to break out the same fear that they use to fear your neighbor because of COVID.
That's right.
You watch it, you'll be like, hey, I don't think we should get into World War III. It'll be like, what are you, a Russian sympathizer?
But see, that's it. They've already set the stage with the pandemic. That's what a lot of people don't understand. These events, whether you know it or not, almost program you in a way.
And here's an interesting thing. I was just thinking about this. History has a very, very interesting tendency of repeating itself.
Yeah.
And what happened at the beginning of the 20th century? We had a pandemic, the Spanish flu, right? What happened very shortly afterwards? Oh, a nice little global conflict broke out.
Yeah, right.
Right after the Spanish flu. I mean, it's these weird, cycles and repeats that it makes you wonder. And look, when all of this sort of started kicking off, starting with the pandemic, right? And we were when we were discussing the global economic implications of all of this, right? Shutting everything down, shutting down trade. When you lock down a country and prevent people from going to work, and just the ripple effects that has on everybody. Businesses shutting down, supply chain nightmares, not being able to ship things. And the strain that put on the global economy. Right. Usually, when you look back into history, hot wars are usually preceded by economic turmoil and economic wars.
Well, you're having you have a lot more nativism, a lot more what they say nationalism going on now. You even have countries like Poland and Norway and Germany firing up the coal plants again. They have to, because they got to have heat, they got to have power, right?
Right.
But this is going to force a lot of businesses, and they've already started it, to repatriate a lot of this stuff because they can't. How many companies went down the tubes with the pandemic? Quite a few. Mom and pops got hammered because they can't make it. Restaurants, a lot of them went the way of the dodo. But you start regionalizing things, and that's why you're seeing
or nationalizing
a lot of stuff with Biden and Trudeau and the guy down in Mexico. I guess starts with O. I can't remember his name.
Build back better, Joe.
They're trying. They're trying to resurrect the North American Union.
Build back better.
Well, it's going to build back better because we'll be all one country. Is it any
surprise to you that all of these world leaders use that same slogan? Build back better.
It's terrible. It's the worst slogan of all time.
Right, but I mean, where is that? I mean, it's a World Economic Forum talking point.
They could have taken maybe read a few pages out of Bernays' book and come up with something a little more snazzy than that. I can't.
They don't really have an imagination.
No.
I mean, look who they're, dude. Klaus Schwab. That guy comes on stage wearing an outfit that literally he looks like he's stepping out of like a science fiction movie. He looks like a bad guy. He looks
I was
like the
about to say
quintessential
he
bad guy.
literally he's the living caricature of a Bond villain. It's wild, man.
Yes.
Yeah,
he literally he's Blofeld.
Is he what do we call that? What was the guy's name in the X-Files? The smoky guy.
Oh, the cigarette smoking man.
Yeah.
He's the guy. He's like his boss. He's
right.
Klaus Schwab is literally his boss. He's
crazy.
He's literally the cigarette smoking man's boss. He's literally you could not if you looked up Bond villain. Good reference, Scott. If you looked up Bond villain, you literally he's the guy whose face pops up. I mean, you couldn't ask for a movie bad guy, a better movie bad guy. And people are like, oh, they're just fawning over themselves as world leaders.
Do you think he's tired of it? It's kind of like, oh, what the fuck? It's kind of like he's like he's almost got a little what's his face in it, Mr. Toad. Oh.
No, I don't think these people are just disgusting. I don't know if they're tired of it. They probably like some of the attention. I don't know.
No, I know that, but you think they're tired of like waiting. Maybe that's why they're trying.
Oh no, they're totally tired of waiting. They wanted this by 2000. This was supposed to be around like 23 years ago.
So I can't get any more teenage blood. It's not doing anything more. Blah.
Right. Well, I mean, they have all the power and all the money they want. I mean,
it's crazy.
It's not even about money. Everyone always thinks it's about money. It's not about money. They literally can print money out of thin air. It's not about money. They have more money than they ever could possibly need. It's about controlling every aspect of your life and then getting rid of you and killing you. They want to whittle humanity down to a certain amount of people that's way more easy to control than it is now, so they don't have to do all of this crap.
So hold on. Then is there any significance to the Georgia Guidestones getting blown up and then all hell going to a handbasket?
Well, I mean, gee, don't you find that a little odd? It's almost like they opened a gateway.
Almost. Like
it's almost
crescendo.
It's almost like it was a kind of a ceremony for them.
Maintain a population of 500 million in perpetual balance with nature.
Right. By some weirdo. But I like how they played that off too. It's just some crazy conspiracy theorist that blew it up. We don't really know who put those Guidestones up. It was some philanthropic I can't even say that word group that put it up.
R.C. Christian.
Under the weird pseudonym of R.C. Christian. It was probably Ted Turner. That was always the idea of who put it up there. And it doesn't matter who put it up there. It's creepy. I don't care how you put it off. It's so interesting. No, it talks about whittling the world's population down to 500 million. In case people aren't sure, okay, there's like 360 million people in the United States currently.
Yeah.
And then so like you're looking at like us in Canada, everybody else dead.
And
think about that for a
crazy.
moment.
It's crazy because when you read the Guidestones and you really kind of look into what it's talking about.
Red, past tense, red. What did they put it back together again? I mean, there wasn't much left of it. So I hear.
When you read them, everything that it talks about is everything that is like being pushed on us today, right? Radical environmentalism. It was one of kind of the key sort of talking points of the Guidestones. It was all like, we need to get back to nature. We need to let Mother Earth, heal from all of the damage we've done. Right.
Look at Neom. Look at what they're doing in Saudi Arabia. It's a mega city. It's one of those mega regional cities where you're concentrating the population and rewild the rest. You know, just like the Rewilding Project and all that crap. This is stuff, folks. These think tanks and these control freaks have been talking about this for a long time and executing it for a long time. And It's not conspiracy theory. Just like all this woke crap is meant to control. That's all it does. Out of chaos, order.
It's all kabuki theater.
Mhm.
All of this crap.
But not to you and me. Not to you and me. It's not kabuki theater because we're not the ones with the criminals that are running in the population centers and not going to jail and all that kind of crap, right? And hey, defund the police. I'm all for it. Goddamn, the police were never supposed to be like that in our society. Never supposed to be militarized.
Right,
never
but you don't want to defund them.
Equipment.
I talked about this with John Shirley. If you defund them, you get what you saw with Tyree Nichols, because they defunded those police and they lowered their hiring standards. And some of those cops that beat that kid to death were hired under the lower standards. And that's what you get when you lower your standards and your hiring practices, and you have smaller budgets, then your training goes out the window. And the only training you get is, here's your nightstick, go beat that person to death. You know what? I don't agree with a police state either, but if the cops that are out there, you have to train them. They have to have better training. And the only way for them to have better training is to have a better budget. So if you take away their budget, you're going to get what you saw with Tyree Nichols, because they're not going to be trained on how to, with small budgets, they're not going to get, how to deal with people properly and how to de-escalate a situation. That's not the training they're going to get. The training they're going to get is, here's your baton, here's your gun. Hey, this is how you knock someone's teeth out. That's the training they're going to get.
And this is all part of a Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution situation.
No doubt.
Because if you defund the police, if you pull them all out and you allow criminality to run rampant, what are the people going to cry for? What are the people going to want? They're going to be like, "Hey, we want the police back. We want order.
They're already clamoring for it. They're already clamoring for it. Why, we were never about that. What? No.
Right. So you're gonna get the people crying for a police. Yeah, you're gonna get the people crying for a police state.
But what kind of you're going to end up getting? You won't get back what you had, because people will be like, okay, you know what? We were wrong. Can we get back what we had? And the government's going to say, well, you know what? No, you can't have back what you had. Instead, what we're going to give you. We're going to give you a federalized police state, because that's what that whole bill, they keep pushing that bill with that kid, the George Floyd and Policing Act bill. That it federalizes the police. That's what they want.
Because
it's amazing.
They're already stormtroopers enough.
How they created the police state problem. The federal government did. And then they going back. See how the problem, reaction, solution, they create the issue by having standards and training for these police officers, by training through DHS, and even having Mossad come over here. It's a known fact. Okay. Yep. Using DHS and Mossad to train police agencies since 9/11, that the general public are terrorists and are the problem, getting these cops amped up and creating, like Radley Balco wrote the book, Rise of the Warrior Cop. For those of you that have never read the book, great book. Go read it. Okay. And you'll see that they've militarized our police forces since 9/11.
Part of the 1033
you have these
program.
Militarized police. Joe, you and I did a great show years ago about this after the Anaheim. Remember the Anaheim protests where the cops were driving around? It was hard for us to tell who were cops and who were special forces, because the cops were driving around, and you know, it was like, whoa. What the hell's going on here?
Oh, and then the agent provocateurs, all those guys.
Yes. So you like, that's a real huge problem. That's the federal government. So they did all this for years, and now they're the same ones that then fund these groups that come out and go, oh, well, we need to defund the police. And then you had them during the Summer of Love, when everybody was burning things to the ground. You had our current vice president and our current president out there stoking the fires along with a bunch of other Democrat politicians. And now they're the same ones saying, yeah, we shouldn't defund the police. No, we need to fund them. We need to back law enforcement. Yeah, because see, the whole goal is to federalize the police forces. And when I say federalize, I mean your local cops will not be under local jurisdiction. They may
Exactly.
look like your local cops, but they'll be under federal jurisdiction, which means they won't be really local cops anymore.
Federales.
Because
Right,
because
they'll be
Popeye,
federales.
you can't trust your
Can't trust
local
these
you
cops
can't
anymore.
trust your local racist good old boys that are
Nope.
that are in your
Nope.
local police force anymore. You got to have federal oversight. You got to have the
Bingo,
federal
Scott.
government running the show. That way they can maintain law and order and make sure everything
follow
is
the money.
being done.
Follow the
right.
money all the way
So,
back, and you'll find that Soros does a lot of that stuff. It's all that
Mhm.
open society crap.
Right. Well, but that's where all that comes from. And then and a lot of these police chiefs, they're crooked. Art Acevedo.
Man, anywhere where you have
anytime
that
you see
kind of
Art
power, think
Acevedo
about
as the
this.
police chief, run.
Up in Massachusetts, right? Of course, it's a very gun-unfriendly state. Up in Massachusetts, you have to get permission from the chief to have a concealed carry. There's not like a law, a process, right? It's arbitrary based on how this guy feels when he gets up in the morning. And how is that okay? You know what I mean? How is that? And all of those states where you see crime going on, typically you have a very, very stringent gun policy. Because I'll tell you what, if they did that stuff in states and towns where more people were armed, that would not be happening. It wouldn't be
Jersey's
happening.
the same way. It's the Northeast. It sucks. That's why I moved
But you
out of there. So I
disarm
grew
them
up-
and you make people think that that's the way it's supposed to be, that you're supposed to live in fear, that
It's not.
you're supposed to wait for the police to show up.
Oh,
then-
dude, it's
Right.
it's stupid. It's not. I remember when I lived in Jersey, and I don't know if this is the same way because it's been like 20 years since I lived there, but I remember back in the day, it used to be you had to meet force with equal force. So, like,
Yeah.
if someone breaks into your house, I guess you're supposed to have like a separate room.
Yeah, you're
filled with,
supposed to
like, every
write a
weapon
sternly
known to
worded
man.
letter first.
And you're supposed to be like, "Excuse me,
Yes.
Mr. Home Intruder, what
I am
what weapon
very,
do you happen to
very
have?"
stressed out. I'm having a stressed out moment right now, and I would really appreciate it if you turned around and leave right now.
Well, you just
Hey,
have to ask him.
Don't
What
worry,
do you
your
have?
your local social worker will show up on scene and
Oh,
have a
that's
chit
great.
chat with them and talk
That's
about
great.
their feelings, and everything will
Well,
be
that's
just
now.
fine.
That's now. Now you just have to give him. You have to give him everything, and you just have to. It literally. It used to be you had a duty to retreat. I'm not kidding you. Like
Yeah,
they
in
used
some
to tell
places you still do.
had, and it probably is still the same way. That's why I hate that state. But it was you had a duty to retreat from your house. So like they fully expected you to leave your house, and the only way you could defend yourself was if you had no other option. If like somehow you got like cornered in your bathroom, and
But
let's say
think
your
about
bathroom
that.
window was too
Think
small
about
for
what
you
you
to
just
climb
said.
out of or something.
So we just talked about earlier abolition of the family, right? Through the decimation of birth rates and things like that to depopulate the planet. Happening, can prove it, and the science supports it. Okay, so that's number one. And then we just talked about that too, right? About the police state, about retreating from your house if an intruder comes. If you can't defend yourself or your property, and that, my friends, is an inherent right to being a human being. If they can convince people that it's better to do that than to defend yourself like that, now you've got exactly another plank that Adam Weishaupt had, which was abolition of private property.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't yours. And watch, as time goes on and things get worse and worse, and it will, just like these famines that are going to hit, and they're all manufactured, and it's already started. Anybody buy some eggs lately? If you don't have chickens, buck. I didn't mean to get you going there, Popeye, but I mean it. If you don't have chickens and they didn't die from flu, you have to go to the store. And when you go to the store, I bought 2.5 dozen eggs for $17 freaking dollars, man. Crazy. My wife, now anybody that's Italian knows that a baked ziti is something that used to be one of those dishes that you could make for the family on the cheap, because you could put the crappy meat in there. You can put it all together. Ricotta wasn't so bad, and it was cheap, and you could feed your family for a while on it. Not anymore. Oh, no. So let me just give you a little rundown how much I paid for just one thing, one of homemade baked ziti, right? So I got a big tub of Polio ricotta cheese, right? Last time I bought that crap was $4.99. $12.99 now for a 2-pound tub or 1-pound tub or something. And then the mozzarella, right? Hey, 2-pound bag, $13. Like, what? Oh, but wait, there's more. The daggum tomatoes. Just regular tomatoes you make your sauce with, right? That's almost $2 a can now. That's crazy. So, and all, it cost me just about $100 with meat, the cheeses, the pastas, all that stuff. Are you kidding me? $100? So, folks, it's already here. You can call it inflation. You can call it famine. You can call it whatever you want. Those people that are on food stamps, those people that are low income are going to be more desperate and more desperate and more desperate as time goes on if the subsidies don't keep up with that, right? And these states are not exactly in good financial shape. So you have that as well. And then we have this debt crap, which is that going to do anything? No, it's not going to do anything. They'll pass it. They'll get a budget through. They'll do all that. But I can tell you that if you go to the grocery store and you go try to buy stuff these days, it's bad. It's real bad. And I don't understand how somebody that gets like $400 a week in food stamps, for like a family of 4, how they're able to cut it. How they're able to cut it.
Guess who produces 34% of the global eggs across the entire globe?
Oh, no. David Rockefeller. He's always and he's not dead yet either. I know it. David Rockefeller.
Let's just say some of them may have been stashed on a certain balloon. It comes from that area.
Are you kidding? So they're Chinese chickens.
Yes.
That sounds China, that sounds almost conspiratorial in a way.
China produces 34% of all global
stunning
egg production.
I'm going to get some tin foil and I'm going to put it on my head, figuratively, and I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to say that the balloons, this is my conspiracy. We need to spread this far and wide. That the balloons were sending out a signal that only Chinese chickens could pick up. And when they did, their brains exploded, or they got the whooping cough, and then they ended up dying. Or it caused chicken coops like the one in Connecticut that killed 100,000 chickens last week to just spontaneously combust, as that did. And it burned and killed everybody. It killed all the chickens.
I have an interesting conspiracy theory for you.
What's that?
Why is it whatever happens here in the United States seems to happen within 2 weeks in New Zealand?
Is that right? They're having a chicken. They're spontaneously combusting.
Watch the news. Watch the news, and in Australia. But if you watch the news here, you'll see there will be like we had the chicken fire here. Like within a week, they had the same thing happen over there. We had floods here. Same thing within like 2 weeks, a week or 2 weeks. They had they had floods there. They raised every time they raise an interest rate here, literally within a week, boom, their rates go up over there. And I know people are going to say, well, of course it's connected. Yeah, but everything is connected. It's kind of weird how every time something happens here, it seems to happen over in New Zealand and Australia within a week.
What I also find is very interesting is that New Zealand is the only other country besides the United States that allows pharmaceutical companies to advertise on TV. We're the only 2 countries in the entire world that allow.
Yeah, that's a crime. Can I just point out how weird it is? Like,
I
don't have television. I don't have TV,
that
right?
Figure was more known.
I don't have regular television. We don't see regular TV commercials, nothing. So I go to the hospital. I have surgery. I'm in the hospital for a week. I'm laying in my hospital bed. They have regular TV at the hospital. So I haven't seen regular TV in eons. And I'm laying in the hospital bed. I can't do anything. I'm like, all right, I guess I'll just, see what's on the TV. And every 5 minutes a commercial comes on. Every commercial on television was for some sort of drug. Well,
who do you think is propping up mainstream media?
I mean, dude, there's no other commercial. I don't think I saw. I didn't see a cereal commercial. I didn't see
it's like life insurance and
nothing. It was just big pharma commercials, and it was like, ask your doctor, ask your doctor, ask your doctor, ask your doctor, ask.
It's really terrible.
Oh my God. I thought it was bad years ago, but I haven't seen TV in forever.
Because mainstream media is literally every advertising revenue. And Big Pharma's going to do it, right? Now, don't piss them off. Do you think they're going to speak ill of any of Big Pharma's stuff? No. They've bought
That's why the vaccines work, Joe. And everyone dying suddenly is not from the vaccines. It's fine.
But these balloons, it's funny. First of all, it's very hard to blame people for being upset about it, both because you have a president that was bought and sold and for whatever reason is compromised ethically, but we can listen in to anybody anywhere in the world. We have some pretty doggone unbelievable technology, which is why the Chinese said, the U.S. is the number 1 spy in the world. We absolutely are the number 1 spy in the world. There's no doubt about it. We can record every communication and we store it in Buffdale, Utah. We do that. We know it. They're not bragging about it, but everybody knows it. So when that happens, there's a difference between a satellite and then a balloon that people can see. You don't know what it is, but life goes on the way it always does. Just like chemtrails, right? For years and years, chemtrails. I just don't know what the whole purpose is. I don't think anybody really does, except for those that have started to deal with it. But I just don't find it just being a spy balloon. Something don't add up there. I'm just saying.
Can I also point out how ridiculous it is that we're even calling it a spy balloon? What a failure! Because everybody saw this thing. Not a very good spy balloon.
Spy balloon on the face of the earth.
It's like the worst spy sort of tactic I've ever. Let's put a gigantic balloon up in the air that everybody and their mama can. Right?
Yeah, they ordered it from Wish or Alibaba.
Right, you had like local, local
hour number 2,
TV stations. Yeah, it's crazy, man.
In hour number 2, we'll talk a little bit about the geopolitical situation some more. Also, some free energy updates.
UFOs.
Because we could get into the whole historic, like the Great Pyramid, the whole thing like that, because it's pretty cool. But I guess there's been a lot of progress made in the free energy realm, especially as it concerns scalar and energy from the vacuum. It's interesting because when you start looking at entanglement and how things work, more and more the science is now pointing to that we live in a holographic universe, that basically what we're seeing is a projection from something somewhere deep, somewhere not here. And as a result, things aren't exactly what they are until you observe them. Until then, they're just waves or, just particle or wave. Who knows what it is? But until you observe it. So, interestingly enough, because we survive and live and breathe in a vacuum of limitless energy, there's been some pretty savvy people that have done some deep research that somehow avoided being messed with and have thinking they might have figured out how perhaps the Great Pyramid was built and how they were able to levitate 70-ton stones, or how they were able to form them in place, that kind of stuff. So it's very interesting. So geopolitics, little science, and I know Scotty wants to talk about lasers and Russians and balloons and everything else.
I also want to touch on something interesting since we were on the topic of the pharmaceutical companies. I'll touch on it real quick whenever we come back.
Okay, when we come back. So hour number one is done. Hour number two, after these short messages, of course, support KGRA and visit our website, kgradb.com. We will be right back, folks. Don't go away.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Are you looking to go on a faraway journey that is magical and mysterious, reaping on mystical legends? If so, then Mysterious Adventure Tours is perfect for you. Imagine a voyage to explore ancient mysteries of Ireland, haunted majesties of Scotland, or their chilling Birth of the Vampires in Romania. These small, esoteric getaways are limited and do fill up fast. So, go to mysteriousAdventuretours.com and book your trip soon.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
Hey, we are back.
Yes.
Yes,
We are very much back. Whew. Better. Wow, hour number two. So, let's get going here on a little geopolitical goodness. And I'm going to play this clip.
Before we get into that, I just want to talk about
Yeah.
real quick because.
Oh, you're talking about the pharmaceutical companies. Yeah. So talk about what you wanted to. Yeah, for sure.
Here recently, I heard that James O'Keefe from Project Veritas was apparently put on leave or may have been removed from the organization by the board of directors.
Rumor has it, yeah, they were targeting him. And How does that happen?
Now, I find this very interesting because he just put out that huge expose on Pfizer for today, right? You know, and
who the CEO just attended Davos, and were confronted by those Canadians, those pesky Canadians again, about the vaccines and how they didn't work.
Now, the story they're putting out is that, oh, he was treating staff really horribly and blah blah blah, and you know they decided, you know, he needed to take a leave of absence or something along those lines. But what I think is, you know, after that massive bombshell story on Pfizer, I mean, where he had this guy admitting that they're manipulating COVID, they're doing gain of function.
All of it.
I mean, just
what was that? What was the term that he used specifically?
I think he called it
something evolution, wasn't it?
Yeah, like targeted evolution or something along those lines.
That's that play on words. That's what they do, right? Department of Defense, Department of War, right? Well, it's not. It's Department of Defense now. Oh, it's targeted evolution. It's not gain of function.
Now, my little tinfoil hat, you know, it started vibrating whenever I heard that O'Keefe all of a sudden is taking a leave of absence, and that the board of directors decided to make this judgment call. And I'm like, man, you know, Pfizer's got some pretty deep pockets. They're not short on cash. Yeah. And I'm thinking maybe a couple people in the board of directors at Project Veritas got a pretty fat check.
You know they did.
And they're like, look, we really need this guy to go away because he hit a really, really nasty chord. And so, you know, I just thought I would touch upon that little topic before we get into things.
There's no doubt something went down there. That guy's that's a company with limitless resources. I mean, look at how much they made in profit just in the last quarter. It's ridiculous.
They could throw as much money at a problem as they want and get the results that they want. Right.
Yeah,
directed evolution is the name of it. Directed evolution. We want to direct evolution in this direction. Now, think about that in the context of what an mRNA jab
They admitted, Joe, that they did that after they got caught, and it came out after that video. Pfizer came out and they admitted that they actually were doing that. And you know, they came out with their BS reasons for it, but they actually admitted that they were doing it. And you know, in the video, basically, I mean, they were doing it, they were modifying the virus, and I mean, at a base level, at like face value, they were doing it to make more quote unquote money off of the boosters.
Sure, of course. I mean, think about what they're saying though.
It's a dual thing. So they were making more money.
Directed evolution
off the boosters, but they were also poisoning more people and you know, furthering the agenda.
Think about what that term
it's like
means
the Freemasons. It's like Pike described the Freemasons. There's the blue rings of Freemasonry. So the blue degrees of Freemasonry, the first couple degrees, have no idea what the inner degrees, the Illuminati degrees, that they even exist. So they, you know, the blue degrees are the ones that go out and raise money for sick kids, do the motorcycle rides, all that stuff. They're the ones that the general public see, and they're like, oh,
and they have no concept,
right? People, but the inner ones, the core ones, are the ones. The Illuminati degree ones are the ones that know what's going on. It's the same type of structure. It's the same thing.
Right. Same exact thing. But think about directed evolution in the context of mRNA, right?
Yeah.
So basically what they're doing is it's a CRISPR kit. That's what it is. It is a gene drive. It is something that when injected into you, it can be spread from person to person.
Yeah.
Right?
Because people shed the spike protein.
It be spread, and it overwrites your DNA. It changes your DNA. RNA is the to
Joe.
Joe spoke about Pfizer and they Pfizer Joe.
Crap.
Literally.
Where am I?
They
I'm
Pfizer
back.
Joe.
Woo!
You're back.
Oh, man, that was rough. I went in the tramp's pocket of Pfizer.
Yeah, they Pfizered you. You all right? Yeah. They jabbed Joe's internet connection. They gave Joe's internet connection a booster shot.
It's crazy, man. All of a sudden, my internet started going haywire. Who cares? Come on, I'm not going to play into that.
I'm sure
Boom.
it's just a coincidence. You know, when we were doing this like 15 years ago, and things like that would happen, it would be like 9 times out of 10, it would be operator error. But nowadays,
oh yeah, it's the DHS by cracky.
Right nowadays, I would err on the other side of things. Just saying.
Hey, look, Pfizer's floating a balloon over Joe's house right now. That's what's going on.
They're floating.
It could be a balloon over my house. I don't know. I don't know, but think about that though. If you're trying to direct evolution and you start doing that through these jabs, because you can't call them vaccines because they're not vaccines, then what do you got? And then you take and add in the over or excess deaths that people like John Campbell and company are making people aware of. And it all makes sense, like, oh, so you take projects like the Tuskegee Project or the IGO experiments or all of these experiments on people over the years, radioactive experiments, forced sterilization, like we said in hour 1, all that stuff. And now we, as and what?
They don't like
Joe's
it. They don't like what
forbidden things.
The forbidden topics.
It's okay to talk about the UFO over Canada, but you can't talk about the real stuff. Boom. You say that you talk about the company that starts with a PF, and boom.
Exactly.
That's right. He'll be back.
Yeah, he'll be back.
No, I agree with your synopsis. Did you get Pfizered again, Joe?
Oh yeah, he got.
I agree with your synopsis, Scott. I think the whole thing with Veritas, I think it's a coup d'etat, and I think because O'Keefe really pissed off the powers that be. That's why.
Oh, definitely. He definitely hit a nerve, and he touched upon the thing that they really did not want exposed, and
it's like he said Voldemort's name out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I definitely think there's a lot more to this whole situation with Project Veritas than what we're being led to believe. And
Joe can't even say Pfizer's name.
Hey, he's back out of the Pfizer pocket.
Oh my God. Oh, it was terrible.
You're not even allowed to mention how they want to turn us all into mutants, Joe.
It's crap.
It's because you live in the Northeast.
That's all other too, right?
Oh,
it's weird.
There is, and you
probably got to reset your router.
I'm thinking that's probably the case.
Did you try turning it off and on again, sir? He's gonna go turn it off and on again. So,
right.
while Joe turns it off and on again, Scott, I want to switch to the UFO real quick.
Okay.
I got something to bring up. I know that you've you've heard of this. This is a good time to play this while Joe's resetting himself. I know you've heard of this clip before. I'm going to bring this up. I'm just throwing this out there, ladies and gentlemen, since we don't know what the hell they're shooting down. Everyone's like, oh my God, it's the Tic Tacs. I don't think it's the Tic Tacs. You know, Fravor talked about the Tic Tacs, and those things were changing direction such fast speeds. I mean, they were chasing them in F-18s, and they could, you know, they were literally like Mach 2, and then these things were changing direction. There's a lot of things they could be. I don't think these things are aliens, but I'm going to bring up something. I'm going to add this clip here right now, and I'm going to bring this up. And I reminded Joe about this earlier that I have, and this is Carol Rosin. A lot of people may not know who she is, but this is Carol Rosin, and this is her talking about space-based weaponry. And this is a while ago. Now, this is from this clip
prior to
that I have.
This is before 2000, right?
Yeah, this goes back to you know, like 20 years ago. And this is her talking about space-based weapons and what the government wanted to do and what the idea was and what she was told by Wernher von Braun years before. And for those of you that don't know, Wernher von Braun, he was the father of the Nazi rocket program, and then we smuggled him over here during Operation Paperclip, which became Project Paperclip, or Project Paperclip, which became Operation Paperclip. And then when we smuggled a lot of Nazi scientists over here, and he ended up becoming one of the founding scientists of NASA. And he ended up becoming like the reason we ended up going to the moon. Right. And she ended up working with him the last couple of years of his life, and she knew him, and he revealed, according to her, and she did work with him, and there is evidence and records of her working with him. So according to her, he revealed things to her. So I'm going to play this video clip. This is old. A lot of people don't even know who she is. So this will blow some people's minds at KGRA, definitely. For those of you old schoolers out there, I know you all know who she is.
You've heard this all before. We've talked about her before. But
I just want to play this because I'm not saying, again, I believe in aliens. I believe that other entities and beings exist in the universe and in the multiverse. I believe that we would be arrogant to think otherwise. But I also think we would also be arrogant and ignorant to believe that our government wouldn't lie to us about things and use the idea of aliens to control us for their own agendas. So I just want to put this out there. Again, this lady had insider knowledge. So everybody sit back for 5 minutes and let's listen to what Carol had to say.
Dr. Carol Rosin is a former aerospace executive with Fairchild Industries, who worked specifically for the last 4 years of his life with Wernher von Braun. During those years, she learned of what Wernher von Braun knew about this subject, and specifically that weapons in space were being planned many decades ago, and that it was all a hoax, that they would first use the excuse of the Cold War, then of terrorist rogue nations, then of an asteroid, and that the ultimate trump card that they would play would be to hoax an extraterrestrial threat to justify the weaponization of space. Wernher von Braun begged Dr. Rosin to do what she could to keep these weapons out of space because he felt it was enormously dangerous and unwise to move down that perilous path.
When I was a corporate manager of Fairchild Industries in 1974 through 77, I met the late Dr. Wernher von Braun in early 74. At that time, von Braun was dying of cancer, but he assured me that he would live a few more years in order to tell me about the game that was being played, that game being the effort to weaponize space, to control the Earth from space and space itself. Von Braun's purpose in life during the last years of his life, his dying years, was to educate the public and decision makers about why space-based weapons are a dumb, dangerous, destabilizing, too costly, unnecessary, unworkable, undesirable idea. The strategy that Wernher von Braun taught me was that first the Russians are going to be considered to be the enemy. In fact, when I met him in '74, they were the enemy, the identified enemy. We were told that they had killer satellites. We were told that they were coming to get us and control us, the dirty commies, that whole story. First, the Russians were the enemy against whom we're going to build space-based weapons. Then terrorists would be identified, and that was soon to follow. We heard a lot about terrorism. Then we were going to identify third world country crazies. We now call them nations of concern. But he said that would be the third enemy against whom we would be needing to build space-based weapons. And the next enemy was asteroids. Now at this point, he kind of chuckled the first time he said it. Asteroids, against asteroids we're going to build space-based weapons. So it was funny then. And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens. And all of it, he said, is a lie. A lie. He didn't mention a timeline, but he said that it was going to be speeding up faster than anybody could possibly imagine. That the effort to put weapons in space was not only based on a lie, but would accelerate past the point of people even understanding it until it was already up there and too late. In 1977, I was at a meeting in Fairchild Industries in a conference room called the War Room. And in that room were a lot of charts on the walls with enemies, identified enemies, names that people had never heard of, names like Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi. But we were talking then about terrorists, the potential terrorists. No one had ever talked about this before, but this was the next stage after the Russians against whom we were going to build space-based weapons, these terrorists. This is 1977. And they were talking about creating a war in the Gulf region when there was $25 billion in the space-based weapons program that yet had not been identified. It wasn't called the Strategic Defense Initiative, at least, until 1983. This weapons system then had obviously been going on for some time that I didn't know anything about. So I stood up in this meeting in 1977 and it said, I'd like to know why we're talking about space-based weapons against these enemies. I'd like to know more about this. Would somebody tell me what this is about? Nobody answered. They went on with this meeting as though I hadn't said anything. I have concluded that it's based on a few people making a lot of money and gaining power. It's about ego. It's not about our essence and who we really are on the planet and loving each other and being at peace and cooperating, using technologies to solve problems and heal people in the planet. It isn't about that. It's about a few people who really are playing an old, dangerous, costly game for their own pocketbooks and power struggle.
And she was correct. And she,
yeah, no doubt. I believe
Carol's still alive. She's like 85 years old now.
Yep.
But, you know, that video, a lot of people don't even know that exists or that information exists. And people can say what they want. They can, you know, they can say it's fake. They can say von Braun never said that. But again, you look at, this is why I started archiving things, 20 years ago, because you go back and you find all of this old footage, or I have all of this old stuff. And this is why I air this stuff when I do my show or when I come on your show and I bring this stuff out, because did you hear anything that sounded anything off from what's happened in the past 20 years?
No, that's
at all,
nice
or in the past, actually the past 40 years that all of us have been alive. I mean, in your life, Scott, in your life, Joe, my life, and in the lives of everybody that's listening, Bill, I know you're listening, all the listeners, in the past 40 years, 45 years, anything that she just said, Has any of that not been true? The Russians,
that's
rogue
that's
states like North Korea or Iran,
Yeah.
terrorists like Osama bin Laden, right? Al Qaeda, ISIS. Oh, they're going to
But if
come
you
cut
think
our
about
heads
it,
off here in America.
you're
right?
saturated.
And don't you find it very interesting, right? How, when she talks about the final card, being this alien threat, right? How just here within the past, 5 years or so, 5 to 10 years, how, I would say 5 years, how the media and the government has did a complete 180 on UFOs, and
They're
now
even doing
all of a sudden,
a church committee on it, right?
yeah, and now all of a sudden, we have all of the these Tic Tac videos, and we have them admitting to running what was it, ATIP and all of this stuff, and and it's become mainstream now to where any UFO talk in the past, you were just a crazy conspiracy theorist, tinfoil hat. Yeah, UFOs don't exist. Oh, you're just one of those crazy people who believe in aliens and all of
The
this
government's
stuff.
official standpoint on UFOs up until only a few years ago, Scott, was that they didn't exist. Ask Joe. When we were in the military, if you saw, we were on ships. I stood lookout watch. In the Coast Guard, it doesn't matter. We're a smaller branch of the military, so you do double, triple, quadruple duty. So it doesn't matter really what your rate is, and even what your rank is. There are times that you're standing a lookout watch, no matter what rate or rank you are. And I could tell you, I stood plenty of lookout watches, and so did many other people. You see a lot of stuff when you're out in the middle of the ocean, Joe. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You're hundreds of miles out in the ocean. It's pitch black at night.
Yep.
I mean, it's so black at night, you sometimes can't see the water next to your ship.
You have to wait like 5 minutes for your eyes to adjust before you can actually start to see anything, because the starlight
it's hard to
will
even see the
actually light
water.
things up once your eyes adjust. But it takes a while.
It takes a while for your eyes to dark adapt. It's so dark out there that they'll tell you to not drink coffee if you go out on night watch, because it'll actually affect the blood vessels in your eyes to the point where it'll be harder to see while you're out there. It'll be your eyes will pick up more light if you go out with no coffee than they actually tell you this kind of stuff. That like Doc will tell you this.
See, now I know why I was blind as a bat out there.
Right, because I used to drink coffee too, because there's no way
I had that in my I was like a intravenous.
You want me to be up from the midnight to 4 a.m. watch out there in the middle of the ocean, and staring at nothing? And literally, you run darkened ship. I mean, we're always chasing drug runners and stuff, so it was like
think about this,
we ran
guys.
darkened ship.
Think about this,
no lights.
the Tic Tac.
Anyway, you see stuff like that. You see a lot of weird stuff.
But I want you to think about this for a second.
Like that.
Alien reproductive vehicles. They're out there. The Nazis had them. They look like flying saucers. They use counter-rotating mercury at high speeds, and it created an anti-grav effect. Basically, it's like a magnetic field. Creates a big magnetic field, and man, you can do crazy crap with that. They go into the ocean, they go out of the ocean, they go up and straight up, and poof, they can do anything. They defy the laws of physics, right? But we've had that technology, or at least
we stole it when we brought the Nazis over here after World War II. Look, here's the difference. I believe in real aliens. Again, I believe that
I'm sure there's
I believe the Anunnaki came here. I believe there's real aliens. I believe in. I actually believe the things that come here.
Lord of the Rings, dude.
I believe there's more. I believe that the beings that come here are more interdimensional. So I believe their craft actually can cut holes in the fabric of time and space, and that's why they're so fast. I don't think that they're actually traveling so fast. I think the reason why it looks like they're traveling so fast is because they're actually able to zip. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they zip a
That's
hole.
what it does, dude. You just don't get it. It's a tramp's pocket. That's what they fly through.
Well, right. They open up a tramp's pocket. They come out the other side.
That's it. But it's more quantum than that.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. They use quantum. Right. We don't understand quantum physics. on like a cosmic level, we're not even infants. We're barely, we're still crapping in our diapers.
And think about
swaddled.
Think about this too. Okay, so alien reproductive stuff. You've also got plasmoids. So plasmoid technology is pretty interesting, and I would recommend people look that up. That's a whole. If I get into that and the rodent coils and all that, that's like a whole show.
Right.
But there are ways to do that. I want everybody to think about this. Pre-flood, the average lifespan was roughly 700 to 900 years. You can do a lot in that time, more than what we have in our lifespan, right? People could accumulate knowledge a lot more because everything was different. The earth, when the cataclysm came and it destroyed everything, minus a few things. There's stuff all over the world, megalithic structures that survived. However, most of the world was destroyed. And after the waters receded and everything kind of, you have what you had today. It was not Pangea, right? There's another programming thing that was thrown out there. Pangea, no. Now, maybe Pangea existed pre-flood, but it didn't just migrate into the States, into where we are today in all these countries. That's not what happened. We know that now. But it's crazy how much people will say and repeat things they hear over and over and over again. We heard it in elementary school and in science and all that stuff. Growing up, Pangea, oh yeah, all that kind of stuff. No. And here's the other thing too. They know that there's cataclysm coming. They know this. That's why they're all building their bunkers in the Ozarks and everything else. All these millionaires and billionaires going and buying up strategic things. But I'll tell you what, these control freaks are really, 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 I think they're just getting impatient. I really do. I kind of feel that going on. I don't know about you guys, but I feel it. Like there's some.
Well, yeah, they're tired of a monkey. They're tired of a monkey wrench always being thrown in their plans, right? And setting them back.
Like,
and so
it's like, how many times can the bad guys lose in Scooby-Doo?
Right.
Sometimes,
so now it seems
they're
like
going to win one time here. You know,
right. Now it seems like they're going for broke. You know, they're like you said, they're getting impatient. They really want to get this this whole New World Order thing going. You know, and they're kicking it into overdrive now. And you know, irregardless of how the pandemic took place, it took place, and that gave them a springboard. You know, a launch pad to really kind of accelerate their plans, you know, and, yeah, they're in overdrive right now. They're really trying to bring it in as quick as possible.
Bill's got an update here. He says, fighter jets investigated, but didn't identify object to correlate radar hits. Restrictions now lifted. NORAD continues to monitor the situation.
Probably Santa Claus and his reindeer.
That was, dude.
They got lost.
You know, kind of a February.
They got lost. You know, they usually track them, you know, around Christmas time.
Right. Yeah. Maybe
and
somebody started the program.
They give him a pass. He's got the friendly, that, you know, the IR tag.
Yeah.
It's only valid for Christmas Eve. It's not valid for any other time of the year. So they're probably shooting at Santa Claus and his sleigh.
See, that's the other problem too, because you insert these lies into the very foundation of people, right? And then when the truth comes along, of course they're disappointed and all that, and it sets the stage when down the road you get information like what we're doing and unearthing about how things really were in the past. And it was really wacky, and it was different, and it had the way the Earth was antediluvian times. no way, no how was it anywhere close to being the same as how it is now.
Dude, there's so much, I used to hear stories like Kriston. I'm gonna give shout out Kriston T. Harris, fist bump to our buddy over at the Rundown Live.
Yeah.
Years ago, 10, 15 years ago, Kriston's been talking about giants.
Oh yeah.
And I used to hear stories about giants and stuff. And I
burial
used to be
mound.
like, yeah, whatever. I mean, giants, I've heard stories about giants and stuff for years, whatever. And I'm, me, I'm into cryptids and I'm into all sorts of stuff, but there's gotta be evidence for stuff. I don't just jump into things. And over the years, I've looked into books. Kriston's sent me some information about stuff, told me about books and stuff, and I've heard him interview people or talk about stuff, and I've looked up information. And when I read, there's a couple books I read recently that blew me away, just about some of the stuff that Lewis and Clark wrote about. There's a lot of hidden history. Lewis and Clark, the story of Lewis and Clark, they mapped out our country, with Sacagawea, that whole story. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, there's a lot of stuff, or not Sacagawea, Pocahontas. There's a lot of history, and there's a whole bunch of that history that a lot of people don't know. There's a good question whether Meriwether Lewis was murdered and whether his death was a murder, and because of things he knew. And there was stuff in their journals they talked about, giant people that they met. Really interesting things. So,
we also had
believe that even in the antediluvian times there were giants. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I think that there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot. Now, I mean, the pictures that you see on Google and the internet, a lot of that stuff's photoshopped and faked.
Yeah.
And I mean, the reason I know that is because years ago there were contests where people participated in, and they admittedly participated in these Photoshop contests, and that's where a lot of those pictures came about from.
Yeah.
On websites like Spark and other websites.
But South America, elongated skulls, non-human DNA.
Yes, dude, there's a lot of weird. Look, there's too much. It's like when it came to Bigfoot. I remember back in the day when I used to talk about Bigfoot. The three of you,
love Bigfoot.
You two, and even our long lost brother from another mother, good old Kev Baker,
and the Kelpie.
The three of you, and him and his Scottish accent used to break my balls. And he'd be like, "Oh, Popeye, Bigfoot, ho 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 ho."
Yeah,
ho. But later on
Popeye.
his show, I'd hear him covering Mothman, Bigfoot. You guys would be doing Freaky Friday, and you guys would be talking about it and taking it seriously years later, because and I knew eventually, because you're all of you are smart.
Dude, that stuff is so real.
It's only a matter of time.
Real.
You can't look into it and see all the evidence and be like, okay, there's something going on here.
There's something crazy going on. And I can't even understand why, how is it that they can go so undetected? You know what I mean? And and then
Tina and I have a theory about that.
They're just, it's like they remain an enigma.
No, we have this interesting theory about this. We think their fur is like active camouflage. So how Predator can bend, how in the movie Predator, he can bend light, and the U.S. military and DARPA are currently working on active camouflage where they can bend light. Right.
Oh, okay. That's badass.
So what if their fur can take on that? What if there's some sort of chemical in their body
or something?
Can get drawn up through the follicles into their fur.
How you can have a paint or a car that has paint. You can select the color. It's just like a different
like it draws
signal.
pigment up into it, or it allows the light to hit it in a certain way, and it can just stand still and blend right. You won't see it.
Either
Because
that or
people
it's
say
kind of
it
like,
takes a
okay,
step
so
to
let
the
me,
left or
what,
to the right,
what-
and boom, it disappears. And they're like, "Wow, how did it disappear?" Well, what if its fur is like active camouflage?
yeah, and then it's got the infrasound, right? So because you got infrasound, then you do like the and then you're like, "Duh," and you don't remember anything because it just like zinked your mind, and you're like, wow, whatever happened? You know,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
know it.
because
Wow, I
there's a
mean, it's
lot
so
of
awesome.
we've sat down and thought about this. Like we've listened to a lot
Yeah,
of like shows and podcasts and stuff and different interviews about Bigfoot and stuff. And we even went to the Bigfoot Experience Museum in
you
Georgia,
can't deny
which
it once you see the evidence.
if anyone gets an opportunity to go to the Bigfoot Experience Museum in Georgia, go.
And
Rad
I
Chick
mean,
will tell you it is an experience. They have evidence there from like Bigfoot encounters and from all over the place. Like people like Dr. Jeff Meldrum and all these other researchers have donated evidence from stuff. Yeah,
Hey,
and it's
and Ange wanted me to point something out too, that Sasquatch bury their dead, and that's interesting too.
well,
You
there's
know,
that. How do you know that they don't bury their dead? And how are you going to find it if they bury their dead in the woods?
yeah,
How are you going to find a body?
and it's
So
not that big of a stretch of the imagination, because think of all of the crazy things that sea creatures can do when it comes to camouflage, and
it's amazing.
the way octopi can do this crazy. Basically, they have the ability to do the active camo thing themselves,
Yeah,
and to completely blend in with everything, just based off of their nervous system and electrical pulses going through their
well,
skin
right,
cells. And so
exactly.
why
So no,
why
that's so
couldn't
even
something on
so
land do that?
so instead of Scotty, that's perfect. So instead of like a
Right.
dye, what if it all it has to do is it sends an electrical impulse through its
yeah, kind of
skin
like that. And it's
to
like,
its hair follicles,
done.
and its hair
Yeah,
follicles then turn like translucent and pick up
translucent.
absorb whatever light is around it, and boom. Because that's pretty much how that active camo blanket works.
Yeah,
Is
right.
it does the same
It
thing.
bends the light.
Yes. So it
And
does the same thing. It bends the light around it, and it's
yeah,
using the electrical impulse. So if it what if its body, I mean, our bodies are actually they're biochemical computers. They're biomechanical machines that are run by a biochemical computer, right? So what if that biochemical computer in its brain is sending a bioelectrical signal to do that? And that would be, I mean, evolution could easily do that. Like you said, there's so many different creatures. How many different look at moths? There's moths, there are huge moths out there, like Luna moths. If you look
Right.
at them, their backs,
Hmm.
when they go up against a wall and they spread their wings out, they look like the face, their back when they're all spread out, their wings look like the face of an owl. And it's done so it looks like an owl, so it keeps predators away, because sitting there, it looks like it's another predator. So other things are like, oh, I don't want to get eaten, and they scurry off. And in reality, it's a moth. There's plenty of
right.
things that can mimic themselves. So who's to say that this thing, when it literally steps out, it makes, it's walking, and then it looks over its shoulder and it makes a left or a right, and people go, it just disappears. How the hell did it do that? It could still be there. It just
Right.
active camoed itself.
Or that could also explain the reason why they say it's a shapeshifter, right? Because if it can decide that it can shift its camo to look like something completely
Yeah,
different,
maybe
right?
that
And
chameleon-like. Yeah, just like you said.
yeah.
Oh,
So
that's interesting. That the
Well,
whole
right, and we don't know
shape-shifting
what
thing is
kind of
interesting.
being that is. So again, that that and I'm not, and that goes back to the whole thing of like Lewis and Clark. There's there's just so much we do not know.
Oh man,
There
it's
there's
crazy.
so much there's so much we do not know about like the true history, and a lot of that stuff you'll find was surprisingly, just this shockingly, and I'm saying that with the utmost sarcasm, has been hidden by the Smithsonian Institute. And
you don't say.
who runs the Smithsonian Institute? Ding, 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 ding. Anyone want to guess? It's our favorite, our families.
Yeah, the Rockefellers.
Yes. And who has controlling stakes also, besides the Rockefellers?
There's a bunch of foundations and endowments.
Yes. There's another famous banking family.
Yeah. Oh.
That starts with an R.
Yeah, I was about to say, is this another one that starts with an R?
Yes. Anything the Rockefellers have to do with, always think of the Rothschilds, because they are always, the Rockefellers are always an offshoot of them. But yes, the Rockefellers control the Smithsonian Institute. So then what do you think you're going to get out of them? Do you think you're going to get any truth out of them?
Period. The endowments come from the billionaires. The billionaires have their giving pledge, right? And their giving pledge is the same thing that the money trust did at the turn of the century, which is why you have all the Carnegie Hall, you have the libraries, you have all that stuff, right, from the philanthropy of these people. Well, now there's the giving pledge, and they're gonna, this is their giving back to society, and they're giving back by shaping it through their foundations, whether it be the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation or the Ford Foundation, the Guggenheim Foundation. All of this money, right? That's what, in the 1950s, that's what the Dodd Commission found out. But they were so floored at just how open these endowments were to and transparent about their need to change society, and to do so in such a fashion that brought about a communist socialist type of framework, or the one world government. This has been something that they've been going for some time, so it doesn't surprise me at all. The problem that I have is that we're not being taught the true history, and because of that, it keeps us kind of, I don't want to say suppressed, but in a way it is. Think about power. We're doing this, and the technology is great, and we've come a long way, but we're still using the same power that Tesla invented well over 100 years ago over these transmission lines, when in fact technology exists to where we don't need to do that anymore. If we wanted to, as humanity, to say, if you wanted to truly advance as humanity, right, then you would all have, money cannot be the driver of society if you're going to go that route, right? It can't be. But how do you do it in any sort of fashion? But it seems like you always go down the road of 1984. It's like, damn. It's like, I can't get there. Let's go down the road of Star Trek.
We don't have to. It's just that's the way they direct
but this is how they think.
It's funny because that's the only way they think. They look at us. That's because of how they look at us. They look at us like we are cattle and like we're useless idiots. They call us useless eaters. Now, I can kind of understand it sometimes why they look at us like that. If you go and you stand, people get pissed at me when I say this. I've had so much hate thrown at me for what I'm about to say. But if you go to Walmart, I mean, I shop there because that's what's around me. But if you go to Walmart and you stand in Walmart and you see how people act and interact with each other and how they treat each other, and how they just act in general, and you like go to Walmart on but I guess now that the COVID's kind of actually killed Black Friday, which is nice. Hopefully that doesn't come back.
Thank God for that. Although
but Black Friday used to that's one good thing that came out of COVID. But
show every
Black
year
Friday used to be like that was a perfect example of like I get how they look at us like cattle when you see that kind of behavior in people.
Space level thinking on steroids.
It's horrible, dude. And it's like, I know humanity is so much better than that. They're like is capable
no
of
doubt.
so much more, and yet that's the way that humanity's been conditioned, and that's it's very sad. But there is a huge segment of society that has been conditioned like that, and it would be awesome, honestly, if the conditioning and all the energy and effort that was put forward into conditioning people to be like that was instead turned around and put forward into empowering people, into being more self-sufficient and coming together. Like I get the inevitability is eventually humanity has to come together and we have to all get along. And I don't know if we have a one world government, but there will be eventually, like if we're going to get off the planet and start flying around space and everything and exploring, we're going to have like a world unified body where we all get along. Okay. And I'm all for that. I'm all for that. But we can't be
dude, if we
we
could pull
can't
it
be
off,
having
it would be
eugenics. We
wonderful.
can't be like eradicating the disabled, getting rid of the unwanted, or I don't like your political beliefs, you get killed. Like we have to be better to each other. We have to elevate the way we treat each other and the way we think in general. We have to get out of base level thinking and we have to elevate ourselves. And then we can go on to that, like getting together and moving on up and going out into outer space. We can't do that until we elevate ourselves. And the people that run things don't even want us on that trip with them. They want to go play in outer space and do their thing, and they don't want us with them. I mean, have you seen this new commercial for Cox Mobile? You know, like Cox Cable?
Right.
These cable companies, they're all getting into the
yeah,
mobile.
yeah.
They're getting into the mobile market now. Like,
that's my cable company.
Okay, well, so Cox Cable now they have mobile. They're
Right.
doing mobile plans now. They have I've caught them on YouTube. Like we'll stream YouTube to the TV, and the commercials will pop up. So that's the only time I see commercials, and the commercials that pop up are for Cox Mobile. You want to talk about how arrogant they are? The people, their quote unquote target audience that they're targeting in the commercials, the people, the customers in the audience are sheep. Literally. The person, the avatar of who they're actually targeting is a sheep dressed in like a suit.
Is a sheep.
Yes,
Yep.
it's a sheep dressed in a suit using a cell phone. And it's like when I saw this, I was like, wow.
Everybody worries
it's
about
right
this
in
chip,
your face.
right?
I mean, how on the nose could you be? And they're so arrogant.
But quite frankly, everybody takes the chip with the phone. If you have a phone, you have the chip. They got you.
Right.
Right.
Well, eventually the phone is your chip now. And then, like Russo said, eventually they'll have an implantable version of it. And
if you need that, or maybe
that's the way they want to
go.
They want to be able to have something that's attached to you somehow. It'll probably be like a bracelet. It'll be a bracelet or Neuralink or something. And it'll
like
be
a web over your brain.
It'll be something connected to you so that it can't come off you. Remember that movie? I can't remember the name of it. It was with Rutger Hauer and Mimi Rogers. It was on HBO. It was in the late 80s. They were prisoners and they had these necklaces with bombs on them. And basically the prison didn't have walls.
I remember that.
And the prison didn't have walls. It was basically the one guy was like, yeah, what happens if I run? And he's like, go ahead and find out. And the one guy's like, yeah, F you. And he takes off and he goes past the posts and his head blew up. Yeah. I mean, that's basically like where we're headed. I mean,
kind of feel that.
Aaron Russo warned us, dude. I mean, he warned us back in 2007, 2008.
Wasn't the Black Mirror? The Black Mirror was the one with the stacks, where you had a stack your memory and your essence.
Oh no, that was what the hell was that? That was It wasn't Black Mirror. I know what you're talking about. That was on HBO too. Yeah, that was where they could take the little, like, basically your spinal disc and just boop and pop it in, and it was you'd come back as a different looking person though.
Yeah, you like if you had money, you could get like a young body that could grow,
Yeah, like
or
a young
whatever, and
ripped
then
body. Yeah.
You just got like a crack whore.
Yeah. No, I can't remember the name of the show now. Oh, no, yeah, that was but that's the idea. That's that transhumanist idea that they're putting forward.
And that's what they're all about. That technocratic
you
society.
notice the messaging going back to what Scott said earlier. It's that same thing. The same thing with the alien thing. It's the same thing. There's like certain messages that the past like 10 years, when we started doing this 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it was that stuff. The only alien stuff you saw was X-Files. The only type of kind of even transhumanist stuff you saw was on X-Files. And
Very
Chris
limited.
Carter caught a lot of crap for that. I mean, the CIA also was influential in releasing stuff slowly through that show. That's why that show was there. But I mean, compared to now, like if we had said that, like when we would talk about this, then people would, you're nuts. Now it's like mainstream. Everything out there's UFOs. I mean, you talk to people now, like, hey, do you think UFOs exist? Yeah, I bet they exist. They're probably real. And to the point earlier, I do believe they're real, that they exist. Like I said, I think there are real ones, but I think we also reverse engineered stuff that we found.
I do too.
I also think, having read Joseph Farrell's books and other books on the subject, we brought the Nazis over here. The Nazis had, like you said, anti-gravity tech. Dude, is it me, or is it weird that, like, if aliens or beings that can zip through the universe or the multiverse, if they can rip a hole through time and space, I don't think they need to follow our streets.
No,
right? Like from above to get around. But you know who does? Our pilots, who are trained to navigate at night using roads and things like that. So I think when you see an object that looks like a UFO following roads and stuff like that, that's an American pilot. That's an American craft, probably Skunk Works. That's Secret Squirrel stuff. It's
these black project things that are out there, and
that's the Skunk Works stuff. That's all. That's what Area 51 is. That's what's going on out there. So anything coming out of Area 51, there's not grays. We don't, that's us.
No, it's like TR-60,
reverse engineering, Secret Squirrel shit. That's what's out there.
Right. Absolutely. Well, we're just about out of time, gentlemen. But let's say for the week, any final thoughts as far as where this is going with the Ruskies now that it's out?
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, and I wonder if there's going to be an increase in tensions in general with Russia and China. Because we have all these spy craft that are now floating over, and things being
Very
shot down, and so
just get Zelensky his bag of coke, and we'll be able
to
keep
man.
the war in Ukraine going.
We got to just come on. Ukraine was corrupt as hell.
Oh, definitely.
We're fighting a proxy war with Russia in Ukraine to keep Russia busy over there. So that's a whole side issue. But
I know. Unbelievable. Well, have a good night, everybody. I'm out of here, and
let's hope we don't have World War III. Love y'all.
That's right.